You know, is it just me, or does Pittsburgh have a weird tradition of pumping out really intense as fuck rock bands? Anti-Flag, The Cynics, Code Orange, Rusted Root, but a lot of these bands I seem to stumble over from Steelers territory always seem to have really high-octane, intense sounds, and they tend to be about as full blast for their respective genres as you can get. I mentioned Code Orange, and we all still remember Forever from last year, right? Of course we do. We all still have the bruises to prove it. But that album basically took the genre of metalcore, tied it to a baseball bat, and slammed you in the back of the head with it as hard as it could, and it was fucking great. I hadn't heard the genre go that heavy in fucking ages. Though by now I'll bet more than a few of you are wondering why I'm spending all this time talking about how awesome Code Orange is, instead of, you know, this band, the one on the title card. Well, a lot of what I can say about Jesus Piece can also be mirrored by what I said about Code Orange last year, even down to their city of origin. This is more of that absolutely crazy, intense metalcore, styled somewhat similar to acts like Code Orange, and even guys like Converge or Shialude. It's stampeding, it's bass heavy, and the vocals sound not dissimilar to two bears trying to kill each other on top of another bear. It's brutal, and props where they're due. Vocalist Aaron Hurd has a terrific throaty shout, and he's really killing it on this record. One thing I'll say right off the bat, for fans of Code Orange, this is definitely something to pick up. But I say that with the slightest bit of hesitation, because if you liked Code Orange, then Forever is still around, you know? That's one of Jesus Piece's biggest problems, I feel. They sound a lot like Code Orange, like a lot. Only kind of like a lesser version of Code Orange. Not necessarily even by their own faults. Code Orange has like 3 vocalists, so they can do a lot of switching up, and they tend to dip into a lot more different sounds and styles. They're a lot more varied and multifaceted. Jesus Piece, they kinda only got the one trick, but it's a damn good trick. If you aren't feeling that one particular thing they're good at, though, this might be a big turnoff to you. It's not the most original band out there. Things can get a little samey after a while, and the back end of the album, where they really lay heavy on the chugging, thunderous, stomping metalcore material, i.e. all the slower stuff. But hell, they certainly aren't the worst act trying to do the brutal metalcore thing, not even slightly. Overall, this is a strong showing, and an interesting as hell debut. I don't know if Code Orange and Jesus Piece have ever done any touring together, but if they were to show up as an opening act for them, yeah, you would really want to catch tickets to that show. But as it stands, they're a grisly as hell band that could use a few more tricks up their sleeves. Only Self gets 3.5 bears wearing top hats out of 5. Okay, now let's do that one thing I like to do and go from talking about a vicious, brutal, scary as fuck band into something so sugar-coated and candy pop cute that all the edgelords in the audience get tonal whiplash so hard they get severe neck injuries and have to drink their Monster Energy drinks through a straw for the next 3 to 7 months. Tee-hee, ain't I a stinker. Fickle Friends is a pop rock act. Another English pop rock act that is absolutely blissful in its melodies and really huge on the old 80s pastiches. Man, that is becoming a thing in British pop, isn't it? Think of it like this. This band is Pale Waves by way of Paramore. Hell, if Paramore had found a way to spawn from, say, Brighton instead of Tennessee, I have a feeling they would really sound a lot like this. And that Hayley Williams would probably sound even cuter with an English accent. I don't know, maybe that's just me. It's super poppy, super groove heavy, super infectious, and just kind of all around fun. This is a fun band, though it also has that problem that some poppier acts tend to have, in that lyrically, it's fairly shallow. I mean, I can't blame them for that necessarily. It's pop, and pop audiences really hate having to think about their music. I mean, hell, Pale Waves actually went against the norm in that regard and took a great big chance this year by being vulnerable and thoughtful and intensely passionate with their lyrics. But no, when they tried it, everyone, wrongly, gives them white hot shit for it. Maybe staying nice and derpy is more of a feature in this kind of music than a bug. The one thing that is a little off about an album this poppy, it's way too goddamn long. Especially for a pop release. 16 goddamn tracks? 51 minutes? Holy shit, who are you guys trying to be, the Red Hot Chili Peppers? But hey, if poppier stuff doesn't turn your stomach or anything, you could certainly do way worse than this. It's long, but the album's also well paced, so you don't feel it quite as bad as other albums I could potentially bring up. If you were one of the people that did happen to be let down by both Pale Waves and the 1975 this year, try this on. This may actually scratch that nascent itch for pop rock. But as far as my particular scale goes here, better than 1975, not as good as Pale Waves. My Mind Makes Noises was good, you cretins. Wow, if you're mad now, just wait until my Album of the Year list comes out in January. Spoiler alert. You Are Someone Else gets 4 British Hayley Williams out of 5. Aborted's Terrorvision is a lovely and elegant piece of acoustic Christian folk music, tinted with soft and gentle harmonies, soothing percussion and beats, and gently whispered vocals that will leave listeners sailing away on a blissful cruise of sunshiny melodies and oh man, that was fun, wasn't it? No, Aborted is death metal. How in the hell could they not be? Their name is Aborted. The album is called Terrorvision. The album looks like this. How could they be anything but death metal? I mean, look at this thing. Y'all know what you're in for here. Do I even have to spell it out? Like, really, if you're familiar with how this particular style of death metal plays out, you can basically look at the cover and almost know exactly what this thing's gonna sound like. And after hearing it, yeah, it's about what you'd expect. Not that that's a bad thing. This is just death metal classic, or at least what today's death metal classic tends to sound like. Guttural shrieks and shouts, pounding, jackhammering guitars and bass, and the kind of machine gun drumming that could put an entire Call of Duty server to shame with how machine gunny it gets. There ain't a damn thing wrong with any of that. Hell, credit where it's due, the band even toys ever so slightly with unique arrangements and scope building exercises here and there. The little instrumental interlude that kicks things off is a nice touch, and some songs do have a sense of build in their introductions, like Vespertine Decay and The Final Absolution. You know, there is an attempt to mix things up ever so slightly, but it's not something the band really has too much time to devote to, you know? They have murder to scream about. I do generally like this flavor of death metal, but this kind of metal is kind of like New York City to me. A blast to visit, but I don't plan on moving in anytime soon. Fans of stuff like Decapitation, both the cattle and vanilla varieties, Dying Fetus, Suffocation, as well as several other bands named after violent things you can do to the human body, this album's for you. It's a little simple, it's a little tried and true, but this particular audience of death metal isn't asking for anything more than that, and it really delivers on what it promises you. This is an album that is exactly what it says on the tin, so if that's what you're shopping for, hey, enjoy. Just, you know, try not to get any blood on the carpets, is all I'm asking. That shit takes forever to scrub out. Terrorvision gets 3 double kick pedals out of 5. Oh, damn it. Another one of these bands. See, I got into this particular line of work because to at least a certain degree, I was always a gigantic music nerd. I always took a lot of pride in how much music I listened to and how much stuff I knew, and I thought with all that knowledge, I may as well do something with it. I know more than enough bands and artists to get by and do this. So smug was I, so naive, so puerile. Because if there is one, only one tiny little piece of wisdom I've been able to glean from my years doing this, it is this. I know fuck all! Low is apparently yet another one of those bands that's been around forever, has lots of accomplishments and clout, and a bevy of loyal, eager fans chomping at the bit to hear from them. And here I am, the eternal dumbass, in the corner going, wait, you mean that one song by Cracker? Be with you, girl, like being low. Yeah, that's a good song. So yeah, again, pleb's eye view with this review, and this one's gonna be a double pleb sandwich with bacon, because when looking up what genre this act was, I saw two words that made me just know we were gonna be in for an uphill battle.
Atmospheric.
And something called slowcore, which itself is linked to another genre called sadcore, which, oh dearie me, I seem to have fallen asleep. Yeah, the people who accuse me of being a speed junkie are gonna have tons of ammunition after this review, because A, yes, I don't particularly like this album, and B, it is for all the reasons that their usual audience probably would love it. I.e. Well, I say that, but the first song on this album, Quorum, really makes sure you're awake by stuffing the track full of digital feedback and glitch effects. Honest to God, the first few times I heard this, I thought something was wrong with my speakers, until the generic whispery dude came in with too much reverb on his vocals, and I was like, oh, so this is what it's gonna be then, eh? Your album's so boring you have to pipe actual fucking static into it to make sure the class is paying attention? Wake up! I'm pretentious! That's what we're in for. Ugh. See, that's the thing with this album. It lists itself as drone and sadcore, genres I'd usually associate with being, like, mellow, but Low seems to be implementing facets from another genre that I don't particularly care for. Noise rock. Those of you that remember way back in the day when I tried reviewing one of girl band's EPs, yeah, remember that? Even to this day, I can admit I totally got that one wrong, but I'm about as much of a reliable source on noise rock as our goddamn president's Twitter feed is a reliable source of information. Apart from the more melody-centric guys like Sonic Youth, Dinosaur Jr., etc., noise rock? Most of it is just noise to me, I'm sorry, and this album is a combination of boring drones, pretentious sadness, and dissident noise. Like, that makes for an unholy triforce of musical genres that I personally can't stand. I was half convinced some kind of dark version of myself was gonna pop out of my body Zelda 2 style and challenge me to a duel. Oh, I hope to God the corner trick works in this battle. All that having been said, there's probably a crowd that will be into this, for sure. Hell, if you're into noise rock, but want to see what the genre can look like when it tries to cool its jets a wee bit, this is definitely worth a try. It's an interesting kind of experimental style that even music that's usually this experimental doesn't often dip into. For that, I can at least respect it. Like, as much as I'm smack-talking it, it's not a bad album. It's just not for me. It's just beyond not for me. As far as my personal taste goes, this album is like if you could add Pro Tools effects to a dog whistle. Now get it away from me, now! Double Negative gets 2 broken speakers. Out of 5. Seriously, fix that shit, dude. So, I have a policy of keeping the people that make requests anonymous, unless they just really want me to give them a shout out. But even then, I really don't like doing that. I feel like it's a way to just keep everyone's noses clean. And while I still plan on keeping that particular policy here on this review, I will let one small detail slip, in that the patron who requested this album really likes this album. I mean, loves it. He's gone on and on and on and on about it. Apparently, this is the album that'll solve global warming and cease international tensions and give good hard cummies to all the lovely people of the world who hear it. Hoota, 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 hoo! And in secret, the more he keeps going on and on and on about it, the more I've dreaded making this review, because theoretically, and just play along with me here, what if I hated it? Seriously, I've always said that your requests only guarantee the album gets a review. That doesn't mean it's going to be a positive one. What if I was all like, special thanks to so-and-so for his request and generous Patreon donation of this album that he loves so much that we will now smash and smash and smash and smash and smash and smash. You see what I mean? Would you want your name splattered all over that, right next to the bits and giblets of your precious? Thankfully, that isn't the case, and I can leave my Papuko bat in the closet because of the new Silent Planet actually is pretty damn good. But if it wasn't, well, let that be a lesson. While I sincerely appreciate the Patreon requests, just know that over on this channel, we spare no senpai. So, Silent Planet then. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's another metalcore album from the Azusa California quartet that's layered with tons of thick, syrupy bass grooves, equally beefy and hammering guitar chords and melodies, and some exquisite vocal work from Garrett Russell. It's heavy and dense, but also very atmospheric, lofty, and achingly moody. You know that kind of sound that dozens of other rock bands tried to capture this year with all the electronics and atmosphere tinkering and all that beat boop bullshit? Yeah, these guys, they actually got that sound, unlike several others this year. The biggest thing that I felt while listening to this album was, man, this is what Bring Me the Horizon wishes they sounded like. And I'm a guy that actually generally likes Bring Me the Horizon, so yeah, take that as pretty high praise. This record creates that crunchy satisfaction you get from heavier music, while also giving off a sense of pleasant sereneness that bands like this often can't pull off without the heavier elements getting in the way. It's a tricky balance. This album's almost genty in how deep and thick the low end can be, but the cleaner melodies and harmonies always seem to stay just far enough in the forefront of the mix to as not fuck up the vibe the guitars and cleaner vocals are gunning for. Silent Planet did really win me over on this one. I really enjoyed it. It could get a little wonky in moments, and some of the atmosphere building gets a bit excessive in places, but none of it's a deal breaker. Fans of stuff like North Lane, Era, Greyhaven, or indeed Bring Me the Horizon, give this a shot. And if my requester has survived the minor heart attack I gave him with that intro, thank you for the request, seriously. I hope that doesn't scare you out of making another one once we get that tier back up. When the End Begins gets 4 Papuko bats out of 5. Boston Manor. This is a band of many small deceptions. They're called Boston Manor, even though they are very much an English band, and according to Wikipedia at least, they're supposed to be an emo, punk rock, pop punk kind of band. But holy shit, I would use precisely 0 of those terms to describe what I heard on Welcome to the Neighborhood. Calling these guys emo or pop punk is like calling Comet cleaning powder powdered sugar. On the surface, I can see how you might get confused, and someone who doesn't know any better might get tricked on first glance, but the minute you try to take a bite, the facade really comes apart. I think there's a bad case of mislabeling going on here. Then again, I have no idea how I would classify these guys. The elements of emo and lighter, poppier punk is there. Vocalist Henry Cox's register is a bit on the higher end of the spectrum, and he does sound a bit more on the snotty, bratty side of punk singers. Though again, that may just be because this is a northern band. See, I know one or two England things. I'm a right chuffing ledge, I am.
Shut up, you cunt!
And guitarists Mike Cuniff and Ash Wilson do favor a lot more crunch and chorus in their riffs, as opposed to heavier distortion, phase, or warbles. It's straightforward sonically, all guns blazing, no frills kind of stuff. It's generally structured like a pop-punk act, but when it comes to the tone of the music and a lot of the theming, we are way farther away from Sum 41 and much closer to something like AFI or Alkaline Trio. Make no mistake, this album's dark. And I'm not just talking about the cover art. Turn your high beams on, dude. Songs like Flowers in Your Dustbin, If I Can't Have It, No One Can, Hate You, and The Day I Ruined Your Life are soaked in every negative emotion you can fathom. Anger, sorrow, regret, jealousy, and just a little straight up unprejudiced hate, just to spice up the pudding a bit. It's so relentlessly dark and bleak and heavy that it almost serves as an apt reflection of 2018 as a whole, which, how miserable is that on reflection? Like, it's very dark, but it's not even to that specific extent either. AFI and Trio, those are goth punk bands, and this isn't that either. It's dark, but it's not like Hot Topic, Eyeshadow, I want to look like the kind of person who could turn into a bat if they wanted to dark. It has way less in common with The Cure than it would, say, Linkin Park? It's just that raw, real, human ugliness that we all try to avoid and pretend that we aren't capable of, but occasionally, at least I hope only occasionally for you, it manifests itself in terrible, hideous ways. The way it deals with emotion and aggressive melodies and subject matters, and mixes it flavorfully with more poppier, ear-catching tones. It almost gave me like an alt-rock feel? Like real alt-rock, okay? Not Chad Kroeger barfing euphemisms about his dick into a microphone to steal yet another dozens of millions of dollars from dumb people. I mean the real alt-rock stuff. It's raw, it's gritty, but it's wrapped in just the right kind of colorful wrapper to make it seem mainstream and potentially appealing. Crash, Jesus Christ, man, do you like the album or don't you? I'm sorry, I fucking love this album, by the way, if I hadn't said that already. It's great, but I'll be damned if it doesn't also baffle me somewhat. Maybe this is a signal of an exciting new wave of alt-rockier, pop-punk inspired stuff coming on the horizon? I caught a few other bands this year, such as Trash Boat and Like Pacific, that are also doing a somewhat similar sound here. Both of those bands released albums in 2018, and they were pretty fucking good too. Though I think I like Boston Manor the best out of this weird little trend that kind of keeps popping up. I loved this album, and I hope to hear more like it very, very soon. If albums like this do signal a new wave or a new trend of something coming over the horizon, I really, really look forward to what it could potentially put out. Though we will need to think of a better name for it than alt-rocky, kind of pop-punk, sort of emo, sadnessy, dark, super spoopy rock. Maybe we can call it Steve? I don't know. Boston Manor gets 5 Steves out of 5.
You're everywhere I go. You're always watching me in the light of my